Hi, everyone, and welcome to this special Minisode of the Wine Pair Podcast. I'm Joe, your sommelier of reasonably priced wine, and this is my wife and my wine pairing partner in crime, Carmela.
Hello.
And we are the Wine Pair. That always cracks me up. Okay, so if you're new to the Wine Pair Podcast, these Minisodes are just shorter versions of the regular podcast that we put on during weeks when we might be traveling or handling other life stuff like taxes or something.
What?
Instead of tasting and reviewing 2 to 3 wines under $25 each that are easy to find, which is what we usually do in our longer episodes. In these mini-sodes, we focus more on things like wine etiquette or wine edumacation or wine tips.
I feel like you're kind of like, you do the mini-sodes kind of on the fly.
Okay, a little bit.
They're not as like formal.
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of notes.
You're just kind of fun to like listen to.
Thanks. Can I finish?
Yeah, go back to it.
So our goal is to make it fun. Aren't you having fun?
I'm having a great time.
And understandable to regular everyday people.
And I am a regular everyday person.
You truly are. And our podcast is recommended by Decanter Magazine.
Woo!
Which we're super proud of.
I mean, so proud. We say it every single time. Thank you, Decanter.
Why wouldn't we?
I mean, we should.
And this week,
we do.
This week, once again, in Apple Podcasts under the food, not the wine category, but the food category, which is bigger.
So weird.
Top 100.
Wow.
There you go. Okay. Now, you may have noticed something as you learn more about wine, Carmela.
Okay.
And we talk about this a lot on the podcast. But do you ever notice that some wines are named after the grape varietal, like Cabernet Sauvignon, or Pinot Noir, or Chardonnay, or Pinot Grigio. Mm-hmm. And sometimes wines are named after a region.
You talk about it a lot.
Yeah, like Bordeaux, or Burgundy, or Barolo, or Rioja.
Important stuff.
And it gets confusing. I will say it's been, for me and my wine education, one of the more confusing things, because naming the wine after a region doesn't help you know what the wine is or what grape it's from, unless you've gone to the trouble of memorizing what the wines are that come from that region and what grapes they use.
Do you think that's why it gets confusing and people just say, can I have a bottle of red or a bottle of white or a glass? You know, like some people just don't know, you know, or they'll just say a blend or...
I think so. I think there's some of that, but I also think that there is a tendency in some... So if we grew up in France or Italy or Spain, I think we would be much more comfortable with talking about things from a region or a place. But we grew up in the United States, and it's all about the varietal.
Right.
So I just think it's also kind of what you're used to. But what also gets confusing is that some places like Bordeaux are even more difficult because depending on where in Bordeaux it's from, you may get a Cabernet Sauvignon heavy wine or a Merlot heavy wine based on whether or not you're on the right bank of the Gironde River or the left bank. Like right bank are more Merlot focused. Confused?
Yeah.
So there you go.
Well, okay.
So now typically, Carmela, wines that are from Europe, again, from the countries of like France and Italy and Spain, are often named for the region. Again, like we said, like Bordeaux, Burgundy, Barolo, Rioja. Newer wine regions like the United States and Argentina and Australia, New Zealand and Canada and South Africa, they will name the wines for the varietals. And so we call this, as you would expect, Old World wines versus New World wines. And interestingly enough, the varietals that are in the New World are clones, are clones of the grapes from the Old World.
Makes sense.
So there you go.
Why create something new?
Why?
I mean, they're creating something new, right?
They are, but don't reinvent the wheel totally.
Right.
Send in the clones. Okay.
Wow.
Now,
is that a song?
No, send in the clowns.
Oh.
Okay. So
I was like, that doesn't sound right.
No, it's different. So every once in a while, you also get some wines that are made in Europe, but are not typical wines for their area. And that leads to an even deeper level of confusion. So a great example of this are super Tuscans. So Tuscany, famous for Sangiovese grape, but Chianti wine. So if you get a Chianti, there's no grape called Chianti.
No.
Chianti is a place. The grape is Sangiovese, but a super Tuscan is like a Bordeaux, where it's made with Cabernet and Merlot and different things like that. Wow. So then you get super confused because they're not even telling you on the bottle. They may say like Sassicaia, but they don't tell you what's in the bottle.
I mean, do you blame people for not knowing all this stuff?
No, it's confusing.
It's a lot.
And I still find France very confusing. Like I still have to remind myself a lot of times about different regions.
And you're a wine nerd.
And I'm a dork.
Total
So
nut.
that's right. So, Carmela, why have they named wines after regions and not after the grape?
Well, what came first? Naming them after regions or naming them after wine?
It's actually a really good question. I think it's more region than grape.
Sorry, I stumped you.
No, it's okay. But do you think they're doing it to confuse us?
No, I think you said it's where you're from that matters or what you've learned.
So you don't think it's because they're trying to make us feel stupid?
I mean, yeah, some winemakers might be that way or wine people, but I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think they're trying to make us feel stupid, but we often do feel stupid.
Yeah.
But here are some reasons why this has happened over time. So first of all, naming a wine by the region focuses the consumer on the terroir, which again is a fancy way of saying the place, and all of the things that are associated with that place, like the weather and the soil and the elevation and the sun exposure and the growing conditions and all these other things. So the regional names don't just indicate the grapes, but the style of the wine, right? Like how it's going to be made. And old world wine producers feel very strongly that this origin, the place, the terroir affects the taste of a wine beyond the grapes themselves. So they are, whether or not you believe it or not, they are very, very serious about it.
Are you casting a spell on me? I feel like the way you're waving your arm around, you're just...
Wingardium Leviosa. Okay, that's magic.
Wow.
So anyway, they put a lot of importance on the place because it indicates that only this specific wine can be made in this specific place with a specific quality because of the terroir. And to them, that's almost more important than the grape varietal, and it's why they're so fussy about maintaining the name of the place as the name of the wine.
I get it. What would you prefer?
Pride.
Do you have a preference? Like, what would you do if you were making wine?
Here's what my preference would be, is that they keep the name and all that stuff, but on the bottle somewhere, they put what the grapes are in it.
Yeah.
Because I actually think
sometimes
that would
they
help.
don't include the grape at all.
No. Most of the time they don't.
Yeah.
That's part of the problem. If you look at a French wine label, you're very rarely going to...
But you're supposed to know.
That's what makes it so hard. Now, another reason wines are named for places is that there are often very strict regulations on which grapes can be grown in specific areas and used in specific wines. And this impacts the price and the expectation of quality. So wines are often named by the region with the assumption that consumers are familiar with the grape varietals that the region produces and the quality of the wine from the region, which is why Burgundy, you should just know. That's Pinot Noir, and it's supposed to be the best in the world.
Okay.
Right? Now, the average wine person, especially getting into wine, probably doesn't know that. But a seasoned wine person will know that, right? Or somebody that grew up in France. And so, somebody who knows about these wines knows that they're made in a specific way with specific grapes. So, for instance, a Barolo is always made in that specific area of Piedmont, Italy, and it's got 100% Nebbiolo grapes. It has to be. Like, that is law. Like, that is legislated. And Chianti must be mostly Sangiovese from the Chianti region. And this is all a legal classification, again, as much as anything else. So the fact that the law requires specific grapes to be used and specific wine-making techniques in certain regions, like how long something needs to be aged before it's released, it seems almost unnecessary to name the grapes themselves, because you should just know that region, whatever, that's how the wines are being made. And again, for this nerdy subset of wine drinkers that really appreciates that. Now, in addition, the specificity of the place implies a certain level of quality and craftsmanship, a specific expectation around things like the grapes that are used, where the grapes are really from, what specific grapes can or cannot be blended into the wine, and also some exclusivity and rarity. And frankly, this impacts the price. Quite often it impacts the price.
Sure.
And this is why a real wine aficionado or dork will ask you annoying questions like, hey, did you mean champagne or did you mean sparkling wine?
Well, sure.
Because to them, it matters a lot. And if you're from Champagne, it matters a lot. In fact, there was a period of time before all these laws were created where California was calling their sparkling wines champagne. Even though it wasn't from Champagne, it may not have been using the same grapes, etc. And so that's why they get really fussy about these things, because it's also about protecting their brand, protecting their special area of winemaking. Another reason for this, Carmela, is just simply history. So the practice of labeling wines by region comes from a time when the knowledge of grape varieties was not as well known.
Sure.
Right? Like you may have...
They just came across grapes and they were like,
we better make some wine with these grapes.
Exactly.
Well, no, I mean, it was like, what grapes are you using? The grapes from this vineyard.
Right.
They weren't going, the Cabernet Sauvignon.
Were they planting them, or were they just...
They just showed up and there were grapes there and they just started making wine. Nobody planted shit back then. They would just stumble upon grapes and be like, hey,
I must make a wine. I must make a wine.
This would be a good thing to do.
Okay, keep going.
Okay, so before the modern era of scientific analysis and cataloging of grapes, many wines were just known primarily by their place of origin and the practices that evolved over centuries. And they may not have known that the same grape over here was the same grape over there. They were associating again with the place and the region and just the winemakers. So European viticulture and winemaking has really deep historical roots that goes back thousands of years through the Roman Empire. Greeks brought in a bunch of stuff, refined in monasteries, etc. And so if you were trying to buy a wine in 1400 BC, you wouldn't ask for a Sauvignon Blanc from the central region of the Loire Valley.
What would you ask for?
You would ask for a Sancerre. Because you knew what you were going to get, because you were looking for that specific wine, and that wine only came from that place. But today, you can get Sauvignon Blanc all over the world.
Wow.
And
thank goodness for that.
That's right.
Because we like it.
We do like it. We like it quite a bit. The naming of wine grapes by variety, like Pinot Noir or Malbec, is actually a pretty recent development. And it came after we really started to understand things like grape species, and also because we wanted to differentiate in regions where many varietals were planted after the phylloxera epidemic in the 1800s. And then in many cases, wines were blends. So actually the single varietal use is also quite new. So over the centuries, it was kind of rare that you would just have a single grape in a bottle of wine. You might have many different grapes blended together from that region or area. And then in the new modern way of making things, a lot of times now we're making single varietals, but this wasn't always the case. And so, since wines were named for regions, there was less need to be so fussy about what grapes were in them until those same grapes started to be planted in other areas and countries. And so once that happened, like we were talking about, the winemakers from specific regions wanted to have legal restrictions. So they didn't want somebody to say that a Prosecco could be made somewhere else. Or a Barolo could be made somewhere else. They could say you can make a Nebbiolo, but you can't make a Barolo somewhere else. The other thing too is like naming a wine by the varietal, it is easier on the consumer. So you don't have to worry about whether something is a Chateau Petrus, a Dom Perignon, or a Bordeaux or a Champagne. The average wine drinker will be able to more easily make a decision on what wine they want to drink based on the grape or grapes in the wine. They don't have to memorize a bunch of places and all that kind of stuff. And some people also just don't care. They just don't care.
Well, sure. They just want a nice glass of wine.
Yeah, they may just want, and they may want a red wine or a white wine. They may ask
their, person they're with, what type of wine do I feel like tonight?
Which is something that Carmela often says to me. What do I feel like?
Because you know what I like.
Fish tacos
and
Sauvignon Blanc.
Right.
That's kind of if you go out to dinner with Carmela and you want to know what to order, that's what you order.
When you take me out next, you people out there. No, I will take you all out and we will have fish tacos and Sauvignon Blanc.
And Carmela will be super happy. And I'll be like, do we have to get the fish? I don't know if I want the fish. Anyway, what we're hoping through this is that you're starting to gain a little bit more knowledge. This is kind of the purpose
and just confidence too. Like,
yeah,
I feel like sometimes just talking about it a little bit helps.
And yeah, and maybe you like loosen some of your frustration when you're like, oh my God, what is this wine? Why do I blah, 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 blah. And I think it helps.
Yeah.
So I hope that helps a little bit. I hope it clarifies a bit why the name of the wine actually matters, sometimes, where it's from. And the real issue is this. If you want to learn about wines that are not named after varietals like Cabernet Sauvignon or Pinot Noir, you just kind of have to start memorizing. There's no easy button. There's
do they
no
have
easy
those
way
little
around it.
cards, do you think? That you can
Like
put in your
flashcards?
Yeah, or just like a little like cheat sheet. You can put in your wallet.
Why
put it in
not?
your back card, back pocket.
Yeah, for sure. No, there are little wine books and little wine. Do that.
Just do that.
Do that.
Put a little cheat sheet in your back pocket.
Yeah, cheat. Okay, if you want to see the sources for our content today and get links to learn more, you can come to our website and look for this Minisode and open up the show notes. But you can also check out our other Minisodes and our regular size episodes on our website at thewinepairpodcast.com. You can follow us on Instagram at The Wine Pair Podcast or on Blue Sky. If you visit our website, you can reach out to us directly. You can sign up for our email newsletter, or you can just send me an email at joe@thewinepairpodcast.com and we'll answer. We'll cater to what you want.
We're here for you. I mean, Joe's there for you.
Wow. That was not, you could have been more.
I mean, I am
Aren't
here
you
for
there
you
for
too.
them?
Absolutely.
See, so there you go. That's nice.
We're having fish tacos and Sauvignon Blanc.
Are we tonight?
Well,
we might. We have to figure out dinner.
We haven't done that yet.
And severance.
Okay,
so we better go. So follow us, subscribe to the podcast, leave us a nice rating and review, and we'll see you next time. And remember, life is short, so stop drinking shitty wine. Bye-bye.
Bye.